Listen closely, my friends. You are losing. Right now, in this very moment, something is being taken from you. Not your money, not your time. Something far more precious. Your mind is being stolen, piece by piece. And the terrifying truth is, you handed it over willingly. You woke up this morning with the same potential as Marcus Aurelius, the same 24 hours, the same capacity for iron discipline. And yet, before the sun had fully risen, your attention was already fractured, pulled in 17 directions by noise that means nothing and people who matter even less. This is not a motivational video, this is an intervention. Because the ancient Stoics, men who ruled empires, survived exile, and faced death without flinching, they left behind a precise, ruthless, battle-tested system for protecting the most powerful force a human being possesses. Not wealth, not status, not strength. Focus, the controlled, deliberate, unbreakable direction of the mind toward what truly matters. And almost nobody is using it. Epictetus was born a slave, beaten, owned. His leg was broken by his master, and he sat there, calm, still, sovereign, and said, "You can break the bone, but you will never break what is mine." That thing he was protecting, his attention, his inner citadel, his focus. If a man in chains could guard his mind so completely that no master could touch it, what is your excuse? What chaos are you surrendering to that a slave refused to yield to? In the next hour, I'm going to give you 10 Stoic habits. Not theories, not inspirational poster quotes. Real, hard, ancient practices that will shatter your distraction and rebuild your concentration into something almost frightening. Something that makes people around you uneasy, because focused people always make the unfocused uncomfortable. Stay with me. Every single habit matters. Miss one and you miss the architecture. Watch this complete, because by the end, your mind will never approach focus the same way again. But before we begin, if you are the kind of person who is serious about rebuilding yourself from the inside out, subscribe right now. This channel exists for people who refuse to be ordinary. And what you are about to learn is not taught anywhere else. Subscribe and let us begin. Habit 1. The Morning Command. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire in human history. He commanded legions, he decided the fates of millions, and every single morning before he touched a single piece of correspondence, before he spoke a word to any senator or general, he sat alone and he wrote. Not letters, not orders, he wrote to himself. In what we now call the Meditations, a book never meant to be published, never meant for your eyes, he wrote in Book 5. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I am going to do what I was born for? Think about what that means. The most powerful man alive in his era, and his first act every morning was to remind himself of his purpose, to command his mind before the world could scatter it. This is habit 1, the morning command. Most people wake up and immediately reach for their phone. Within 30 seconds, their mind has been colonized by other people's emergencies, other people's opinions, other people's noise. They have surrendered the most sacred window of the day, that thin, luminous moment between sleep and waking, to the chaos of the outside world. The Stoics called this window prosos, watchful attention to the self, a deliberate pause before the world begins its assault. Here is what you do instead. Before you touch your phone, before you speak a word, before you open a door or check a notification, you sit 5 minutes, 10 if you can manage it. You ask yourself one question and you answer it honestly. What is the single most important thing I must give my mind to today? Not the most urgent, not the most demanded, the most important. There is a brutal difference between the two. Urgent things scream, important things whisper. And in a world engineered to make everything feel urgent, The Stoic morning practice is the only way to hear the whisper before the screaming begins. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius in a letter that has survived 2,000 years. Omnia aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est. Everything else belongs to others. Time alone is ours. Your focus is time made visible. When you scatter your focus, you are not just wasting attention, you are spending the only currency that cannot be earned back. The morning command is not a ritual for comfort. It is an act of war. It is you, standing at the gate of your own mind, deciding what enters and what does not. Every morning you fail to do this, you leave the gate open. And in this world, trust me, something will rush through it. Command your morning, or the morning commands you. Habit 2, the single arrow. Seneca, writing from Rome in the 1st century, surrounded by the most sophisticated and seductive civilization the ancient world had ever produced, looked at his society and said something that sounds like he wrote it yesterday. He wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." Read that again. To be everywhere is to be nowhere. He was watching Romans try to do everything simultaneously, attend every banquet, pursue every pleasure, manage every relationship, chase every ambition at once. And he saw the result clearly: men who were busy beyond measure and accomplished nothing of depth. Men who touched everything and mastered nothing. Men who at the end of their lives could not point to a single thing they had truly, completely given themselves to. This is the trap that is devouring your generation right now. You call it multitasking. The Stoics would call it self-fragmentation, a voluntary fracturing of the only tool you have. Here is what neuroscience has confirmed about what Seneca knew by observation alone. Your brain does not multitask. It switch tasks. Every time you move your attention from one thing to another, there is a cognitive switching cost. A tax paid in clarity, in depth, in mental energy. A Stanford study found that heavy multitaskers were actually worse at filtering irrelevant information than people who rarely multitasked. Not better, worse. They had trained their minds to be perpetually scattered. They had practiced distraction until distraction became their default state. Habit 2 is the single arrow. The Stoics trained in archery not only as a physical discipline, but as a philosophical one. An arrow cannot serve two directions. The moment you try to aim at two targets simultaneously, you hit neither. This is not metaphor. This is the architecture of excellence. Cato the Elder, the Roman senator who so terrified Carthage that he ended every speech, regardless of topic, with the words "Carthage must be destroyed," was described by his contemporaries as a man of singular focus. When Cato worked on a legal case, there was no other case. When Cato spoke to you, there was no other person in the room. He was entirely, frighteningly present in whatever he had chosen to do. This is what made him formidable. Not genius, not talent, the refusal to divide himself. Practice this today. Choose one thing, one task, one conversation, one piece of work, and give it everything. No second screen, no background noise, no checking while doing, just the task and the full weight of your undivided mind. You will be shocked by what you produce. You will be shocked by how different it feels to be truly present in your own life. The single arrow does not move fast, it moves true. Habit 3, the subtraction discipline. There is a story told about Michelangelo. When asked how he created the statue of David, that sublime, terrifying, perfect figure, he replied simply, "I removed everything that was not David." The Stoics understood this principle with an almost brutal clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "If you seek tranquility, do less." Or more accurately, do what is essential, which brings a double satisfaction: to do less, better. Do less, better. 3 words that could transform your life if you allowed them to. But most people cannot allow them, because subtraction is frightening. Addition feels like progress. subtraction feels like loss. And so people keep adding. More apps, more commitments, more relationships, more content, more noise, until their life is so full of the unimportant that there is no room left for anything that matters. Habit 3 is the subtraction discipline. The Stoic philosopher Musonius Rufus, the teacher of Epictetus, a man so respected that even Nero banished him twice because his influence was too powerful, taught that the disciplined life was defined not by what you took on, but by what you refused. He wrote, "The person who eats more than they need does not nourish themselves, they burden themselves. The same is true of the person who takes on more than they can fully attend to. You are burdened not by your circumstances, by your accumulation." This week, I want you to conduct what the Stoics called a cura, a careful review. Look at your commitments, your digital habits, your conversations, your entertainment, your social obligations. Ask of each one a single ruthless question. Does this serve the person I am trying to become? Not does this make me comfortable? Not does this make me liked? Does this serve the person I am trying to become? If the answer is no, cut it. Not slowly, not politely, cut it. Every time you remove something that was diluting your focus, the remaining things become sharper. Your energy does not spread thinner, it concentrates. And concentrated energy, like concentrated light, can burn through almost anything. David was always inside the marble. Marcus Aurelius knew that the life you want is already inside you, buried under everything you have not yet had the courage to remove. Subtract, and watch what emerges. Habit 4, the fortress hour. In 177 AD, Marcus Aurelius was fighting a war on two fronts, the Marcomannic Wars in the north and a plague that was killing 5,000 Romans a day. He was simultaneously emperor, general, judge, and philosopher. The administrative demands on him were beyond anything most people in history have ever faced. And somehow he produced the Meditations. 12 books of the most precise, honest, psychologically sophisticated thinking in the ancient world, written not in a quiet library, but in a military tent at the edge of the known world, surrounded by death. How? Because he protected time for deep thought the way he protected supply lines, not when convenient, not when everything else was done. He protected it first, because he understood that without the clarity deep thinking produced, everything else would fail. Habit 4 is the fortress hour. The Latin term for this in Stoic practice was otium, not idleness, but deliberate, protected, undistracted time given to the work that matters most. Seneca wrote extensively about this. He warned that the man who has no time set aside for himself, genuinely set aside, defended, inaccessible, that man belongs entirely to others. He wrote, "Recede into ips, withdraw into yourself as much as you can. This is not introversion, this is strategy. Every day you must have at least 1 hour, ideally the same hour every day, where you are completely unavailable. Phone off, door closed, or location removed from the world. No emails, no messages, no interruptions. Just you and the work that demands your deepest attention." This feels impossible to most people, and that feeling of impossibility is precisely the evidence that you need it. Because what you are really saying when you say you cannot find one undisturbed hour is, "I have given every hour of my existence to everyone and everything except what I care about most." The fortress hour is not selfish. It is the condition under which everything valuable gets created. The greatest writing, the deepest thinking, the most important decisions, these do not emerge from the fractured, constantly interrupted mind. They emerge from the mind that has been given room to breathe, to go deep, to encounter itself. Build your fortress, defend it, and enter it every single day. Habit 5, the obstacle as whetstone. Most people lose their focus when things go wrong, when the project breaks, when the relationship fractures, when the body fails, or the plan collapses. The moment reality stops cooperating, the mind scatters, chasing anxiety, replaying failure, spiraling into what-ifs. The Stoics saw this pattern clearly, and they developed a practice so counterintuitive, so alien to modern thinking, that most people cannot fully believe it even when they understand it. They trained themselves to use obstruction as fuel. Marcus Aurelius wrote what has become perhaps the most quoted Stoic line in modern philosophy: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." But most people quote this line and misunderstand it. They think it means stay positive. It does not mean stay positive. It means something far more practical and far more demanding. It means the harder the thing in front of you, the more fiercely you must direct your attention toward it, not away from it, toward it. Habit 5 is the obstacle as whetstone. A whetstone sharpens a blade by creating friction. The harder the stone, the sharper the edge. The Stoics understood that difficulties, frustration, resistance, failure, opposition were not interruptions to the focused life. They were the very material from which focused power was forged. Epictetus taught this with the uncompromising clarity of a man who had been forced to learn it the hardest way. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. The Stoic word for this was crisis, the act of judging, of deciding what a situation means. When something difficult arrives, most people make the same automatic judgment. This is a problem that prevents me from focusing. The Stoic retrains that judgment into something else entirely. This is a problem that requires me to focus. There is a Roman story about Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, who, after losing an entire ship's worth of cargo in a wreck, walked to Athens and enrolled in philosophy. When asked later if the shipwreck had been a tragedy, he said, "Fortune drove me to philosophy by giving me nothing else to go to." The greatest catastrophe of his life became the instrument of his greatest achievement. What obstacle in your life right now? What frustration, what resistance, what difficulty could serve as the whetstone that sharpens you? Stop treating it as an interruption. Start treating it as the work itself. The blade only becomes sharp because it met something harder than itself. Habit 6. The discipline of negative visualization. There is a Stoic practice so psychologically powerful that modern therapists have independently rediscovered it under the name negative visualization or cognitive rehearsal. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It works like this. Every morning or at the start of any important task, you deliberately imagine the worst that could happen, not to terrify yourself, not to spiral into anxiety, but to strip the future of its power to ambush you. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time. This practice does something remarkable to your focus. When you have already met your fears in your mind, when you have already rehearsed the failure, the embarrassment, the loss, the actual task loses its grip on you. The anxiety that was stealing your attention dissolves, and what remains is pure clarity. Habit 6 is the discipline of negative visualization. Most people avoid thinking about what could go wrong because it feels bad, but the avoidance does not protect you from fear. It just keeps the fear intact, hovering just below consciousness, constantly drawing on your attention without your awareness. A vague dread is far more expensive than a clearly examined one. Marcus Aurelius practiced this discipline with extraordinary regularity. Throughout the meditations, he returns again and again to the theme of mortality, not morbidly, but functionally. He reminded himself that the empire could fall, that the people he loved would die, that he himself would die, not to despair, but to concentrate. Because the man who truly knows he is going to die who feels it in his bones, cannot waste his attention on trivialities. The Latin phrase memento mori, remember that you will die, was not a curse. It was the most powerful focusing device in Roman philosophy. Try this today. Before you begin your most important work, sit for 3 minutes and ask, what is the worst realistic outcome if I give this my full attention and still fail? Examine it. Name it. Look at it directly. You will discover something remarkable. The fear that was diffusing your focus becomes, when you look at it squarely, far smaller than it felt in the shadows. And with the fear defanged, your focus becomes absolutely fearless. Habit 7. Guard your company with your life. There is a line from Epictetus that most people read and agree with immediately, and then proceed to completely ignore. He wrote, "If you wish to improve, be content to appear clueless or stupid about external things. Do not wish to seem knowledgeable about anything, and if some people think you are important, distrust yourself." But his more practical warning, the one that cuts directly to your focus, was this: above all, keep a close watch on this, that you do not keep company with another person of your old habits. For if you do, you must either become like them or make them like you. There is no neutral ground when it comes to the people you spend your time with. Either you are being lifted or you are being diluted. Habit 7 is guard your company with your life. The Roman aristocracy had a term, contagio, contagion, which they applied not just to disease but to character. Seneca wrote, "Choose associates who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." The process is mutually beneficial. He also wrote something even more blunt: recede in the ips quantum potes. Withdraw into yourself as much as possible, and mix with those who are likely to make a better man of you. Welcome them to your house too. Think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not who you wish you spent time with, who you actually practically spend your time with. Do they speak about building things or about tearing things down? Do they expand your sense of what is possible, or do they remind you of every reason why things cannot work? Do they protect their focus, or do they scatter yours every time you enter their presence? Scattered people are not evil, but they are contagious. Their anxiety becomes your anxiety. Their distraction calls to your distraction. Their refusal to live with intention quietly undermines your own. This is not theory. You have felt it. You have been in the presence of someone chaotic and felt your own clarity drain away. You have been in the presence of someone deeply focused and felt something in you sharpen. Your attention responds to its environment. Protect the environment. This does not require cruelty toward those you love who are struggling. It requires honesty. It requires the courage to limit your exposure to people and conversations that reliably leave you scattered, and to deliberately seek out people whose presence pulls you upward. Epictetus did not say be content to appear stupid about this. He said guard it with everything you have. Your focus is only as strong as the company it keeps. Habit 8, the evening audit. Every evening, without exception, Seneca conducted what he called a daily audit of his soul. He described it in a letter to Lucilius that reads like a private confession made public. "When the day is done and I have gone to bed, I review my whole day, my deeds and words. I hide nothing from myself. I pass nothing by." Then he lists 3 questions he asks himself every night. Did I do anything wrong today? Did I waste any time today? What did I learn today that made me better than I was yesterday? This is not journaling as a self-help exercise. This is ruthless self-examination in the tradition of the Roman courts, where Seneca had spent his career, applied to the most important case he would ever argue, his own life. Habit 8 is the evening audit. Most people end their days the way they began them, unconsciously. They collapse into bed having been swept through 16 hours by whatever happened to demand their attention, with no review of how their focus was spent and no preparation for how it will be spent tomorrow. And then they wonder why nothing changes. The evening audit breaks this cycle. It inserts consciousness between today and tomorrow. It forces you to account for your attention the way a serious investor accounts for their capital. Ask yourself tonight and every night 3 questions. Where did my focus go today? Not where was I supposed to give it? Where did it actually go? Was it where I chose to direct it, or did the day simply carry it wherever the current was strongest? Where did I allow my attention to be stolen? Was it the phone? A conversation that should have been shorter, an anxiety I fed instead of examined? Name the thief precisely. And finally, what single change in tomorrow's behavior would return the most focus to the most important work? Just one, not a list of resolutions, one surgical change. Marcus Aurelius ends many entries in the Meditations with a tone of profound impatience, with himself, with his failures, with the gap between who he was and who he knew he could be. This is not self-flagellation. It is the productive dissatisfaction of a man who refused to let himself become comfortable with anything less than his full capability. The evening audit is the instrument of that productive dissatisfaction. It keeps the gap visible, and visible gaps get closed. 30 days of honest auditing will show you more about the true patterns of your focus than any productivity system ever devised. Habit 9. The body as instrument, not enemy. There is a moment in the Meditations where Marcus Aurelius, writing after a day of administrative and military demands, addresses himself with a sharpness that still cuts across 20 centuries. He writes, "Treat the body rigorously so that it may not be disobedient to the mind, not indulgently, not extravagantly, rigorously, because the emperor understood something that our culture, obsessed simultaneously with physical aesthetics and physical neglect, refuses to sit with. The body is not separate from your ability to think. It is the instrument through which thought happens. A degraded instrument produces degraded music." Habit 9 is treating the body as instrument, not enemy. The Stoics were not ascetics in the manner of some Greek philosophical schools. They did not advocate for the punishment of the body or the glorification of physical suffering. Their position was more precise and more demanding. The body must be fit to serve the mind's purpose, not more, not less, fit to serve. Seneca wrote, "I do not exercise my body for its own sake. I exercise it so that it does not become a burden to my thinking." What does this mean practically? It means that the fatigue you are fighting every afternoon, that fog, that inability to hold a thought, is not a motivational problem. It is a physical one. It is the result of insufficient sleep, of food chosen for comfort rather than clarity, of a body that has been sitting still for so long it has begun to rebel. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for concentration, decision-making and impulse control, is profoundly affected by sleep deprivation, poor nutrition, and physical inactivity. This is not metaphor. When you fail to sleep, your prefrontal cortex literally operates with reduced blood flow. Your ability to concentrate is chemically compromised before the day has even begun. Cato the Elder, who was famous for his physical austerity, walked everywhere when other Roman senators rode. He worked in his fields. He ate simply and slept adequately. Not because he enjoyed suffering, but because he understood that a body maintained at peak function gave him something no amount of wealth could buy, a mind that worked. Here is the minimum the Stoic framework demands: sleep 7 to 8 hours. Move your body every day, even walking, even briefly. Eat to sharpen, not to numb. These are not lifestyle recommendations. They are the maintenance requirements of the instrument through which all your focus flows. You cannot build a cathedral with a broken hammer. Take care of the hammer. Habit 10. Live as though the moment is all you have, because it is. In the 5th book of the Meditations, Marcus Aurelius writes something so stark, so direct, so utterly stripped of sentiment that most readers pass over it without fully letting it land. He writes, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. You could leave life right now. Not someday, not in the distant future when your health declines or your age catches you. Right now, this afternoon, this hour." The Stoics were not being morbid, they were being precise. And the precision of that statement, when you genuinely allow it to settle into your body, does something to your relationship with distraction that no productivity hack, no time management system, no motivational speech can replicate. It makes triviality visible. When you carry the genuine awareness that this moment is finite and unrepeatable, not as an abstract philosophical position, but as a living, breathing reality, the notification on your phone loses its urgency. The argument that was consuming your attention becomes obviously unworthy. The procrastination, the distraction, the endless deferral of the things that matter most, all of it suddenly looks like what it is, the squandering of an irreplaceable inheritance. Habit 10 is this: live as though the moment is all you have, because it is. Seneca wrote to Lucilius in perhaps the most urgent letter in the entire collection, Ita fac, mi Lucili, vindica te tibi. Do this, my Lucilius. Claim yourself for yourself. Claim yourself for yourself. Not for your employer, not for your social media audience, not for the expectations of people who do not share your goals and will not share your regrets. For yourself. Now. Today. This is not selfish. It is the prerequisite for everything else. The person who has not claimed their own attention cannot give anything real to anyone. The person whose mind belongs to everyone except themselves produces nothing of depth, loves with nothing of fullness, lives with nothing of meaning. The Stoics understood that time is the only resource that cannot be stored, cannot be earned back, and cannot be borrowed. Every other loss in life can be recovered from. Lost money can be made again. Lost relationships can sometimes be rebuilt. Lost health can often be restored. Lost time is gone with a finality that nothing else in human experience matches. Marcus Aurelius, writing in what he knew were likely the final years of his life, returned again and again to the same theme. Not with despair, but with the clean, demanding urgency of a man who has decided not to waste what remains. He writes, "Confine yourself to the present. Not the past you cannot change, not the future you cannot control. The present, the only place where focus lives, the only moment where your attention can actually do anything." This is the 10th habit, and it is the one that makes all the others possible. Because without this, without the genuine gut-level understanding that you are not owed another minute, the other 9 habits become intellectual exercises, interesting ideas, things you will probably start doing next Monday. With it, they become urgent, they become non-negotiable, they become what you do today because today is quite possibly all there is. Confine yourself to the present, and in that confinement, you become free. 10 habits. 10 ancient disciplines, refined across centuries by men who faced exile, slavery, war, plague, and death, and who built through all of it minds of extraordinary clarity and power. The morning command, the single arrow, the subtraction discipline, the fortress hour, the obstacle as whetstone, negative visualization, guard your company, the evening audit, the body as instrument, and living as though this moment is all you have. None of these are easy. All of them are possible, and any one of them, practiced consistently, will begin to change the texture of your mind. But the Stoics did not practice one habit. They built a way of being, a complete architecture of attention that made excellence not an occasional achievement, but the natural condition of their daily existence. That architecture is available to you. It has been available for 2,000 years. The only thing standing between you and it is the willingness to begin, today, not tomorrow, and to defend your beginning against every force in a world that profits from your distraction. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Say it now. I will be the person who protects their focus with the same ferocity with which warriors once protected Rome. I will claim my attention for myself. I will begin today." And if this video struck something real in you, something you recognized, then subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below with the one habit you're going to start immediately. Not next week, today. The gate of your mind is open. It is time to close it and guard it, for everything that matters most is on the other side.